Happy Tap Talk Wednesday. Another wonderful week here at the Whistle Punk. And before we even get started into this, I want to show you a new fun addition that's just a cool piece of window dressing here, and just a fun little thing that Ashley got to spice things up here. So check it out. The first time lighting this, it's not permanent location, but kind of a fun thing to run during Tap Talk, and I will just turn it on so you can at least see it because it's super cool. Woo! Look at that. Official. It looks pretty slick, doesn't it? On air. So now we can put that like on outside and people will know we're broadcasting in here. I think it's pretty awesome. So thank you to Ashley for that. I'm just going to leave it on. I'm going to sit in front of it, so you probably won't really be able to see it, but we'll find a spot of prominence for it to go. So yes, happy friggin' mid-August Tap Talk. I don't even know what happens. What happens all this time? Summer is a slippery beast. Well, I hope that you are having a great midweek and that you've got something tasty to cozy up to. That's always my goal. Is I've got some delicious drink snacks. I hope that you are at a spot where you can sit down, put your feet up for a minute, and just enjoy something alongside me. So let's talk about some fun beer. Let's talk about it first. I try and do housekeeping. What do we got that's going on? We adjusted our trivia to next Wednesday and kind of shifted it up. Kind of had some staffing things to figure out. So next Wednesday we're going to do trivia, and it's going to be Adam Sandler trivia. So it's going to be all about Adam Sandler movies, Adam Sandler on Saturday Night Live, maybe a little bit about his just personal life and details of one of the funniest and most prolific comedians and movie stars of certainly my generation. So Adam Sandler trivia next week. Dress up, maybe like Happy Gilmore, or maybe you got Little Nicky, Waterboy. I don't know. There's lots of good stuff to choose from. So that will be a lot of fun. And then what else? We've got some other fun stuff coming up. Again, the mini Ragnar relay at the end of the month. We're gonna have the Cobble House Cafe food truck back here on Thursday the 25th. And we, Ashley and I, successfully did complete the Minnesota Road Ragnar relay this past week as a part of a 12-person team that ran from Minneapolis to Duluth. And it was crazy. It was a lot of fun. It was a really cool experience. If you have any interest in running at all, which I have only the vaguest bit of interest, but the van of people that we were with was fantastic. It was super cool. Loved it. Highly recommend. And it's a good challenge to try something new. Anyway, let's talk about beer. I've got a few fun things here on tap, and then we got another new fun thing that got added to the fridge, so you want to definitely know about that. So we're going to kick it off here with one of our newest beers on tap. This one is from Good City Brewing out of Milwaukee. We haven't had a ton of Good City over the years, but we've had a few, and they've all been very solid. And this one is called Fetch. It's a West Coast IPA. Let's give it a dish. You gotta give it a sniff. Get your nose in there. Smell it a little bit. Give it a little swirl. Why not? So, kind of a nice change of pace from a lot of the hazy IPAs out there. I think we've gone down this road again, but just to lay it out, if it's still something that is not super familiar to you, or maybe you haven't caught those spots where we talked about kind of the distinction between hazy IPAs, West Coast IPAs, session IPAs, black IPAs. What are all these different IPA formats? The basics are IPAs are a style of beer that focus primarily on the characteristic of the hops in the beer. And that can come across in many different ways. People talk about hoppiness as one beer being hoppier than another, and sometimes I get a little bit of grief because I don't list IBUs on our beers here, on the beers we have on tap. And I don't necessarily do it out of spite or anything like that. I just find that IBUs are only mildly helpful, and in IBU is an international bittering units. It's a way of measuring the bitterness of a beer, which people can interpret as the hoppiness of a beer. But sometimes there are beers they're very, very hoppy that aren't actually bitter. So the characteristic of what hoppiness means is kind of a fluid concept. It can mean the aroma and the flavor of the hops, which are really prominent, but maybe the beer is not very bitter, or the beer could be extremely pungent and bitter and maybe doesn't have a super strong hop aroma and flavor. So it can vary a bit. So anyway, to get back to my point here of what is this West Coast IPA thing, let me have another sip just to make sure I'm very informed in the moment. So you can see pretty light bodied. That's pretty typical of a West Coast IPA. It's nice that there's a couple classic examples of this if you're not familiar with it, but maybe you're familiar with some of these beers. Stone IPA, Stone from Escondido, California, or Lagunitas IPA from Petaluma, California. Both are what I would consider some of the standard bearers of the West Coast style of IPA. Malt body is fairly mild, fairly light, not a real rich caramely malt, more kind of like light and bready. And then the hop profile is bitter. It's got a big punch of like pine, resin, a little bit of like grapefruit in there, but definitely more kind of like heavy as opposed to like really fruity and juicy hop characters. So more of the C hops, which we talk about things like Cascade, Crystal, Centennial, a lot of Chinook. These are some of the styles of hops that have been more the classic, Columbus also in there, classic hop styles that were sort of popular before everything became super, all these new breeds that came out. Anyway, so they tend to be more dry, punchy, and have more of a bitter hoppy flavor, so dry finishing. This is kind of what IPAs had been more like in the last 15 to 20 years. But now the West Coast style, I think, has grown in popularity as a way of differentiating from hazy or juicy IPAs. I've got a question. If you have questions or just want to fire smart-ass comments my way, please engage in the comments. I do read them. Ryan says, do you have a preferred IPA hop? He likes Centennial. Centennial is a wonderful hop. In case you're not sure what Centennial hops taste like, drink Bell's Two Hearted. It's made exclusively with Centennial hops. It tastes very much like a candied citrus peel, like candied orange mixed with grapefruit, and just really nice. I would say my preferred IPA hop probably for me is it's probably Citra. I've just really enjoyed that hop all along the way, and it can be a lot in small doses, or in high doses, I should say. But I just really dig it. If you're familiar with Toppling Goliath, Pseudo Sue, that's made exclusively with Citra hops, and there's quite a few others that are, but that's a pretty well-known one in the Midwest. It's got that really super citrusy, almost bordering on like catnip, and like the term caddy can be a way of describing super heavily dosed Citra beers, and almost can smell in a really weird, and this might sound gross, I don't want to put you off on it, but can smell a little bit like cat pee. Like if you've got a cat in your house and the litter box needs to be changed and it smells kind of like cat pee, it's a weird thing. I don't know. Why is that good? I'm not sure. Why does gasoline smell good and I want to drink it? Perhaps I have a mental problem. But I know I'm not alone. Other people like it too. Anyway, I like Citra hops. I also am a big fan of some of the New Zealand varieties like Nelson Sauvin, and Galaxy hops are from Australia. Those are really cool. There's so many now. There's so many new experimental varieties. Strata is really interesting. We could spend a whole session just talking about hops and their impact. So thanks for the question, Ryan. That's a good little interlude. This one, Fetch from Good City. I'm not sure if it means like fetch, like throw the ball, go get it, or is it a Mean Girls reference and talking about Gretchen Wiener is trying to make fetch a thing. Maybe it became a thing. Maybe it's a West Coast IPA made in Milwaukee now. I don't know. Either way, it's very good. And if you like IPAs, but you're kind of tired of drinking hazy beers, come drink some of that. We just put it on tap. It'll be around for a little while. All right, next beer. This one, it's pink. It's delicious. It is sour. It is from Petrus, and I have space, and I'm doing this live, and I'm not going to try and look it up. And I can't remember the name of the brewery off the top of my head that brews this beer, but it's from Belgium, and Petrus is sort of their brand with it. It's not the name of the brewery, but it's kind of their brand, Petrus Pale Ale, which is a sour pale ale, which is the base of this beer. And then this is made with cranberries. So it's a sour golden beer that this has been blended with cranberries and makes for this delightful fruity experience. So let me give it a sniff. It smells like cranberry cocktail. And it honestly drinks a lot like cranberry cocktail. It is a sour beer, but it is, I think, still drinkably sour, but it is for people who like sour beers. If you're not familiar with that, or if you tend to not really like sours, this one might not be up your alley. Cranberries themselves have a dry, bitter, sour character, but it's really cool. It's a really cool flavor. It's very tasty. It's very interesting. So this one we just put on, and I have been a big fan of all the stuff that I've had from them over the years. I'm very happy to have gotten a chance to get this beer. And we're in Stone Lake, for crying out loud, so we got to have cranberry beer. We got to prime the pump for Cranberry Fest, which I'll be talking more about. We know the details of who's going to be here for it this year for our brewery, but I'm gonna make you sweat. I'm gonna make you wait a little bit. So, Petrus Cranberry Rosé Sour Ale made with cranberries. Just so good. It's got that little bit of barrel, like aged in oak barrels, like a little bit of that oaky tannin kind of slight funk, and then the fruit just blends in really well. I love it. So you might not want to drink it, more for me. All right, and then this one I'm just going to do a showdown of. It's a new packaged beer for us to have. I only have a limited amount. I was only able to get a case of it. So I'm not trying to build up the scarcity thing, but there's just not much, so come and get it if you like it. A double dry hopped triple IPA. And this is the hotness right now. This is the cool-ish, if you're into that. It's made by a collaboration of 4 different breweries. Black Stack from St. Paul, so that's the channel we got this through. Fair State out of Minneapolis, Modest out of Minneapolis, and Forager Brewing out of Rochester, all of which are making killer beer, and they all got together and made this beer called Sunday Scaries. If you're familiar with that term, that's kind of like the panic you get Sunday night when you're like, oh crap, what do I have to do to get caught up on Monday, or did I do that thing over the weekend? And I think you just drink this, and then the Sunday Scaries either really manifest or they fade away, because it's 9.9% alcohol and made with just like I don't even know the blend of hops that are in this. It's just a behemoth of juicy hop haziness. This is, as opposed to that West Coast style, this is the hazy double dry hop. It looks kind of like golden orange juice. It's very hazy, very unfiltered, but just bursting with hop juiciness. And again, a limited item, so won't have this one around for very long. So if you are into chasing down some of the coolest, newest breweries and their beers, this is one not to miss. So we've got that in the cooler next door. I'm not opening because I already opened one earlier tonight and shared it with our buddy James, who it's his birthday, so happy birthday, James. So yes, yummy. You want it in your face. And finally, my last beer of the evening. Oh, I just missed this one. Oh, Xylus Petrus Aged Red is one of my favorite beers ever. That's what he said. And I think that makes some sense. I think that is a good thing to have in your arsenal. Yeah, Petrus is just really cool Belgian sour beers, and maybe things that you might not be as familiar with. They're a little lesser known, I think, in the grand scheme of the craft beer world. All right, so you may notice right up here, there's a little gap. Oh, so for anyone who didn't tune in earlier, check this out. Look at, we're on the air. Ashley got this really cool sign that we can put up. It's brand new, so I have not mounted it officially yet, but as you can see, we're on the air. I like doing the Vanna White thing, right? There we go. All right, so the final beer is what's going right here. You'll see there's a little gap in our menu, And it's because we just kicked this keg about an hour ago, and so we just replaced it with something new. And the one we kicked was the Three Sheeps Full Spectrum, the fruited sour, which had been hanging out for a little while. A very tasty beer. We're happy to have it around, but it has moved on. And in its place is this stuff. Look at it. This is like straight JOOSE juice. Oh, and it's yummy. Do you want to know what it is? I could probably tell you. This one is it's a beer from Weldworks Brewing out of Greeley, Colorado. We have had just a couple of Weldworks beers in the house over the last couple of years. They come through a small specialty beer distributor, Pequod. Our good friend Zach, who is one of our favorite beer industry folks, who's always happy to come up here and bring us delicious beer and share the love on what's new and cool. Zach travels around. His pulse on what's happening in beer is definitely way more fine-tuned than mine is these days. And so when I hear about these things, I'm like, let's give some of these a shot. And we've had some of this stuff in the Cobbler series from Weldworks in the past. So this one is Apricot White Peach Cobbler. It is a smoothie sour, meaning that it's made with vanilla. It's made with a little bit of lactose or milk sugar, graham crackers, as well as Colorado white peaches and apricots. It tastes like a apricot dessert that you'd get at a summer barbecue that someone had turned into a beer form. It is silky and smoothie-like. It's just packed with a ton of fruit. Like, can you smell it? Here, I'll put that up there. Do you smell it? It just smells like fresh basket of apricots and peaches. Just very, very bright, juicy, rich smelling. I mean, it almost makes you salivate smelling it. And it has the texture. We've had some of these beers and seltzers, the smoothie style, where the texture can be, like bordering on like thick, like a smoothie. This one's not quite like that, but it definitely does have more of a texture than your standard beer would. Carbonation's almost non-existent there. It's a little bit of a bubbliness, but it's just a really cool and interesting beer, and designed to be sort of like a really refreshing summer sipper. It's got a bit of tanginess to it, but it's very different sour than what you might expect, or than what you might get from the Petrus. So this one is just a really cool, this is a brand new addition to the list, and a kind of a new fresh beer from them. And they make really cool and interesting beers. It's funny to see where things have gone to now. I mean, Dogfish Head really started pushing the boundaries of what all you could put into beer. I mean, not what all you could put in, but like what you could market and produce and actually sell. And I think you've got to give them a lot of the credit for pushing the boundaries of this. Shorts Brewing in Michigan as well has been making tomato beers and key lime pie beers for years, but now these styles have really kind of become normalized in the mainstream. And I don't know that like 15 years ago or so, when we started getting into beer, if you would have said that this beer had peaches, apricots, lactose, vanilla, and graham cracker, you'd be like, what in the hell is that? And admittedly, it is a different element. It's a different beer experience. It's not comparable to an amber ale or a pilsner or a stout or anything that's kind of more traditional in your wheelhouse. It's a different flavor experience, but it's really cool. It's very tasty. If you get your head in the right space, it's a lot of fun to enjoy. So that is where I'm wrapping it up with tonight. I'm taking one more sip. Yum. Dessert for final beer. So that's what we've got going on. This week we will be hanging out. Tomorrow's Thirsty Thursday. I hear tell there might be a delicious dish being brought by one of our patrons, and perhaps some mushrooms that he has cooked up that sound very tasty. So if you've got something fun you want to bring and share, come on down. Otherwise, August, holy cow, not much of it left. We got to squeeze in the last bits of summer while we can, so I hope you get a chance to enjoy that and get some good beers to do it with. And we'll check in with you next week. All right, thank you very much. Happy Tap Talk Wednesday. Cheers, everybody.